Welcome to my roundup of what I believe to be the best games of 2025. Keep in mind I haven't played most of the games that came out in 2025, so the games are pretty long. They take up a lot of time and there's a lot of them. However, I did spend a good chunk of my year last year trying out new games, and I found some that I really connected with, and I wanted to just sort of highlight them and spotlight my experiences with them in this video as a sort of moment for me to get across what they mean to me and hopefully inspire some of you guys to check out the games here if you're interested in them. Please do. You never know, you might find yourself on the other side of that experience feeling a lot more nice. Yeah, everything here is really good. Everything I mentioned here I had a really good time with, and I would recommend comfortably. I'd like to give a quick shout out though to Citizen Sleeper 2 and the Rogue Prince of Persia, both games that I wish I got more time with. Both really solid. You know, Citizen Sleeper 2, I would not be shocked if that ends up placing pretty high on this list once I'm done with it. I'm just too early in the game for me to really comfortably place it on the list above these other games that I also really love. There's loads of excellent games that I know are great, I just haven't played them, and that's why they're not here. I haven't played Monster Hunter Wilds or Absolem, although I really want to. I played the demo for that. That was really good. The Seance of Blake Manor seems very up my street. Root Trees Are Dead, I keep trying to get into it, but it's yet to take over my life. I'm sure that moment was waiting for me with that game. I do hear it's excellent. Enough rambling, enough preamble. Let's kick off the list. At number 20, I have Haste Broken Worlds, or just Haste if you want. It's an indie game that came out early in the year and it absolutely dominated my Steam Deck this year. I get an excited little shiver every time I see the main menu of this game because I know I'm mere moments away from mechanical bliss. This game taps into a part of my brain that developed a joy for games like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater when I was younger, or like Devil May Cry, even games that are all about fluidity and mechanical mastery that, you know, simple to use but hard to master. This game's very hyper-focused towards the unnerving thrill of going as fast as you can to a point where you can't really fully control where you're going to end up, but it's about wrangling the game to your will so that you can control it and you end up in this zen-like state as you continue playing through these incredibly difficult speed challenges. There are some nice mini games in here too, some explosive boss fights. It's a really good package. Narratively, it's pretty thin on the ground and the presentation can be a little shoddy sometimes, like the menus and everything, but overall this is a very strong game. I enjoyed myself quite a lot with it. Number 19 is Skin Deep. I think this game could potentially be massive. I think this should be spotlighted, man. This I feel like a lot of good live streams could come from this game. It's kind of a comedy game. It's like a sandbox immersive sim game where you're rescuing cats, fighting against an evil clone of yourself who works for this corporation. It's very zany. It's maximum zaniness. There are space pirates that are kidnapping these cats, and once you free the cats, you can email them. What I love about it is literally everything on screen at any given moment. Well, not literally everything, but mostly everything here is interactable and can respond to your input. You know, there's hand sanitizer. Oh, that's flammable. You can use that to make some shit happen. Oh, you can make the guard sneeze by throwing black pepper on the floor, and they sneeze and that distracts them. Literally everything around you can be prodded at, and the game wants you to prod at it because it knows that there's a reaction that it really wants you to see when you do prod at it. And the puzzles are fun. The humor baked into the writing of the game is great, but just these scenarios that occur when you just tinker around with all of its, interlocking systems, it's incredible. It's an amazing sandbox experience. So many things in this game that don't look like tools can be tools if you just force them to be. I had loads of fun just causing absurdist chaos in Skin Deep this year. Please do try it. At number 18, I've got Elden Ring Night Rain. My concern going into this game is that the traditional From Software appeal of Souls games and the base Elden Ring wouldn't be there innately because it's a multiplayer title focused on action and teamwork as opposed to exploration and character building. And that's why I like those games. But here, I feel like they really found a voice in the multiplayer space. It's a little bit unbalanced in some areas, it's rough around the edges, but when everything does harmonize, this game can culminate into some of the most exciting and electric gameplay experiences a multiplayer game can give you, for my money. Keep in mind, this is coming from somebody who does not play multiplayer very often. I'm very much 90% of the time a single player boy. But yeah, 3-player mini roguelike campaigns being a new multiplayer thing. I know Remedy tried their hand at it as well to less successful results with FPC Firebreak. I would like to see more games try this. I think it's a cool angle. And I know the upcoming Nintendo exclusive From Software game, The Dustbloods, is also shaping up to be another multiplayer experience. So yeah, we'll see how From Software develop their voice in this space going forward. I'm excited to see it. Number 17 is a super overlooked indie called Mind Diver with pretty interesting 3D scanned facial visual stuff going on where you sort of swim around in people's psyches and their brains, and you reconnect their memories, and you have to sort of solve puzzles and infer things from their fuzzy like remnants of conversations that they can remember. And the goal is to sort of put the people's memories back together so that they can have like a more concrete understanding of themselves, and it's like this sort of interpersonal drama unfolding. It's pretty gripping though. It's definitely satisfying to hear a line and think, does that mean that they were holding this? And then you look for that and you find it, and it's like, oh, it all worked out. And like, you know, that sort of gameplay loop is certainly, you know, it's fulfilling for sure, and it definitely tickles my brain, who's often into like detective puzzle solving type stuff. It's very short, it's very well acted. I was very satisfied with it. I think it's really good. Number 16 is Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, the most frustrating but undeniably very good game of the year. I really like this game. However, there's so much I did not enjoy while I was playing it. I'm always in like a little battle in my brain about this game, because whilst I do think it is one of the most exciting and boundary pushing and just thematically rich narratives I've played in a while, it's also one of the most bumbling, fumbling around, exposition dumpy narratives I've ever played. And the game itself is just at odds with itself. It feels like it's really uncompromised one moment, but then it's also trying to sort of be palatable and enjoyable and listen to the criticisms too much of the first game, and it ends up sanding down itself a lot, like by, you know, making vehicles really accessible, making the BTs really easy to escape past, making the combat fun, but again, very just simple. You don't have to engage with most of this game's systems. It suffers from a similar problem that I found with Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, where there's very clearly one ideal strategy, dangles the sandbox. You can have a rocket launcher and you can use these gadgets and blah, blah. It's like, no need to do that though, because there's one strategy that just is way better in every situation. It's a messy ass game, bro. It's a very, very messy game, but it's an honest game. It's a very expressive game, and the gameplay loop is really strong. The visuals are impressive, and the cutscenes in this game are some of the best in gaming history, and the performances are tremendous too. There's a lot to love about this game, and I hope Kojima continues to operate with big budgets on AAA status, doing psycho shit like this. I just think quite a lot of the innate things that are appealing to me about Death Stranding as an idea are just sort of sanitized in this game. Like, I like to be frustrated and feel tedium and feel reward, and this game is like, here's a really fun not so sandbox where everything's kind of made pretty easy for you, so you don't really feel that same reward, and that's very baked into the nature of the themes of the game. I think the game has a lot of tragedy baked into it and its characters, but has a really hard time knowing how to communicate those things. Like, Kojima's writing is way too hokey, I think, for some of the subject matter in this game. I really admire it for the leaps it does take, and it does stick the landing sometimes, but yeah, there's so much contradiction in this game's design. It drives me crazy. For every moment spent like confused and bothered, there were like 3 moments that had me amazed that this game was even real to begin with, had me elated, overjoyed, and fascinated by its world. I think overall there is just way more good than bad. The bad just confuses me. It frustrates me. I really think we could have had like an absolute knockout masterpiece on our hands here potentially, but it's worth playing. I really recommend it just because you cannot get this anywhere else, and I do think it has the potential to like change some lives, man. This thing really swings for it, and yeah, I guess hard not to admire that. At number 15, I've got Ball Pit. This is an incredible game, dude. I'm shocked by how good this is. I highlighted some thoughts about this game in my dopamine overload video thing, the sort of number go up game roundup thing I did. I talked about Ball Pit there. It's an extremely inventive, creative, and satisfying breakout roguelike game. You fling balls at enemies, and you combine the different types of balls to make new balls, and there's loads of little build combinations, and there's also like a town builder element as well, which is really fun. You can fit it into short bursts of time and have a really nice experience, just as much as you can just get super lost in its many different systems. And this game just like reinvents itself and flips what you thought it could do on your head constantly. As you unlock the different characters and levels throughout the game, you see that this thing is quite a Pandora's box of chaos just waiting for you to open it. And yeah, this thing's pretty boundless with its creativity. It really never fails to kind of outdo what you're kind of expecting it to do. It's good shit. Number 14 is Arc Raiders. I was going to just dismiss Arc Raiders as like a game just not for me, because again, I'm not really a multiplayer sort of guy, but I kind of caught word that this game works pretty well as a single player experience. It's an extraction shooter where robots have taken over and humanity's like underground, and you have to sort of go up, scavenge for resources, do quests and stuff, then come back down safely, but you have to be wary of the machines and also of other players that could also, you know, attack you. But I have found most of the time in this game, other players are pretty friendly. Other players don't want to attack you. They don't want any beef because they're scared too. They're struggling to survive against these machines as well. Everyone is. And the AI systems that have been introduced to program the machines is very incredible. Like, this is the kind of thing I would like to see AI used for, not replacing voice actors, Embark, because they do that in this game, which is fucking shit. But yeah, what they did with the AI programming for the enemies is fantastic, because you're always actually feeling like your life's at stake. When you find even a small robot, you know it could be lights out for you, because the AI is strong enough for you to struggle against it. You can never quite pin down what enemies do in this game to a learnable pattern. In the same way other games of this type might be exploitable, instead this game is unpredictable and exciting. It's the first online game in a while that I feel pretty compelled by. Also, looks and sounds tremendous. Some of the best technical work in the industry happening right here. It's worth a go. It's worth a go even if you think it's not your kind of thing. Number 13 is Davey Wreden's Wonderstop. I played this pretty recently. It's amazing. I am blown away by it. It did not look like my kind of thing from the trailers. I was like, oh cool, Davey Wreden's making a new game. I love Stanley Parable and Beginner's Guide. Well, I love Beginner's Guide more than Stanley Parable, but I love what Stanley Parable is going for, or like what it represents. I love Davey Wreden's brain, and his approach to making games is extremely one of a kind, and it felt like with Wonderstop he was kind of making something a bit more normal. This is actually one of the most heartfelt and honest games I've played in a long time, and the cozy game tea shop simulator aspects, they are very much a vessel for what Davey Wreden's kind of fighting through. This game has a lot to say about burnout, about perceiving yourself in a creative space, learning about yourself, overcoming sort of personal doubts, imposter syndrome, stuff like that, and it does so really hilariously. This is pretty comfortably the funniest game of the year. There is this one character, the guy who wears like a knight helmet, and he's like showing pictures of him and his kid. It's the hardest I've laughed at a game in so long. Every picture of him and his kid got more nuts than the last one. They just kept fucking going. If this game has revealed anything to me about Davey Wreden, it's that through the Stanley Parable and Beginner's Guide, he was actually holding quite a lot of himself back. There was so much personality and humor in this game, and it's playful, it's very happy and excited. And I feel like the cozy game bedrock that Davey Wreden has laid for himself here has given his sense of humor a foundation to really flourish. This game is so delightful and so funny. Quote-unquote cozy games aren't necessarily my thing all of the time, but the gameplay mechanics are strong enough and engaging enough for me to really enjoy the sort of learning curve of this game. It is definitely compelling. It's really the narrative and the writing here that makes this a fantastic game, in my opinion. At number 12, I have Hell Is Us, the debut game from Rogue... Oh, shit, I forgot what it was. Rogue something. Rogue Warrior or some shit like that. Isn't that a game? That's a game for the 360. Rogue Factor. In Hell Is Us, you play as Remy. He's like captured and he's being interrogated. Remy is voiced by the guy who does Adam Jensen in Deus Ex, so he sounds like really cool. You're basically seeing like the events that led to his interrogation and what he discovered on Hadia, this like really horrible place full of mystery and lore and history. This is a game very much trusting that you are locked the fuck in. It's weird that the marketing for the game, like the trailers, it looks like a Souls-like, like an action game. And it is an action game, although the action is very secondary to the real magic of Hell Is Us, which is the puzzle solving and the storytelling. You spend quite a big chunk of this game on the sort of log menu screen, looking at the clues you've learned and trying to decipher like the threads to solve these puzzles and these mysteries in front of you. And that's what I live for, man. I love games that really put secrets and puzzle solving at the center of their storytelling, and I ended up being really immersed in this world. I love the visual language of it. I love the writing and voice acting. The combat got the job done fine enough. It wasn't really all that stimulating or exciting to me, but yeah, there's a pretty like serviceable, robust enough action game. In the skeleton of this game, you got like crafting and upgrades and leveling up and blah blah blah, and all that sort of stuff. But for me, the magic of this game just came in wandering around and asking questions and taking little mental notes of things, taking actual notes of things, and just solving the many interesting mysteries I found. I thought this was a really cool world, and I really hope more games just kind of take on board this style of game design. It's a shame this thing dropped like right alongside Silk Song. I think it deserved a much bigger moment. I hope the game was successful enough to keep the team going. I know there's a lot of layoffs happening right now, but yeah, these guys are really skilled, talented, and I'd love a sequel. I'd love a new game from them. I'd love to see what they can expand on further, because I love their commitment to non-traditional game design ideas, map markers and hand-holdy things like that they're nowhere in this game. This is very much like we are trusting that you are in for this experience for the long haul. That respect for the player went a long way here. Number 11 is Silent Hill F. Harrowing experience. Like one of the most fucking grim things I've played in a while. This thing is gross, messed up, and upsetting deeply. There's like a warning at the start that tells you how messed up this game is about to be, and I was still, even then, just really quite taken by the personal tragedy and horror happening at the center of the story. This is a story that shines in exploring those spaces that games rarely touch on, taboo things that aren't really said, the unspoken truths, the psychological. Games can really frequently fail to capture like the real magic that exists in that space. Films have been doing that for a while. Literature has been exploring that for a while, but games don't really do that. Silent Hill was probably one of the first, if not the first game to really have a central text that requires, the player to read between the lines a little bit. So Silent Hill F is very much carrying that torch forward, but in a very fresh new way. This is a game that takes place in Japan from a Japanese developer who's very much known for telling psychological and thoughtful, nuanced stories. And here we get to see what those stories look like when they become interactive, playable, explorable, and those nightmares come to the audience in like a physical way. The sound work and the enemy design and the voice acting, the cutscenes, it's extremely riveting. It's a really, really moving experience. If you're going into this looking for like a Resident Evil, like a really action-oriented survival horror experience, you do get a pretty adequate game. I wouldn't say this game's combat is like its high point, but it is thematically, narratively appropriate. Some of the puzzles are really good, some of them not so much. Overall though, what this game puts you through is bold and exciting and genuinely upsetting and scary, in my opinion. I think things like grief and tragedy and political turmoil, feeling small and unimportant, anxiety, depression, these are things that are really scary to face in the real world. And I love horror that confronts stuff like that and uses that as the kind of backbone for the horror content, because that's stuff that you can connect to, you feel close to. It feels like walls are closing in when you're playing Silent Hill F. And yeah, I loved my time with this game. I think it's really great. Potentially like a game that could rekindle this series in a very fresh way, because whilst the Silent Hill 2 remake did go over really well, this is like an exciting, fresh take on what Silent Hill can be, and that to me is pretty cool. At number 10, I have Clair Obscur Expedition 33. As far as just impact, relevance, this was an unignorable one. Sweep the Game Awards in a way no game prior has ever done. Deservedly so. This game is an absolute miracle. This game existing is a miracle. I think it is the most original thing to happen in the RPG scene in God knows how long. Interactive turn-based combat, endlessly fascinating universe. Those are two of the biggest selling points of the game right here. And they're both a massive part of why I think this game is so original and innovative. But I think the biggest innovation Clair Obscur makes is happening a bit further back, like behind the scenes. This game is written so maturely, very, very beautifully written. It uses a storytelling structure that's pretty abnormal for video games especially. There are some pretty big swings happening in the way this game structures its narrative. Yeah, the game is using fantasy as a means to communicate very upsetting things like legacy and grief. The very family-oriented story that's permeating throughout this thing is extremely hard to not be moved by it. I feel like for JRPGs, it's pretty rare for them to tackle their subjects with a massive amount of complexity, depth, and humanity. Normally, they could be a little bit hokey or childish. I'd argue games in general are just pretty bad at subtext. The JRPGs the most. You look at Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, the Tales series, Valkyrie Chronicles, and tragically Persona as well. They all have these really explosively exaggerated characters. They're quite over the top. For the record, I love it a lot of the time. I say all this like it's a horrible, terrible thing, but I find these games extremely charming, and they feel like you're going off on this big adventure. And dude, Persona, I'm the last person you'll ever hear slandering Persona. This is purely me observing these, qualities. But yeah, I do think these games, have a good chance of being stronger experiences if they handle their stories with a bit more subtlety and care. As charming as they are, that would probably go a long way. Metaphor Refantasia was a game recently that was a delightful step in the right direction in this regard. It just signaled a bit more of a mature tone, but it still maintained that excited, adventurous JRPG charm, whereas, yeah, Clair Obscur just feels like it's the first JRPG I've played in a long time that is directly catered to a more mature audience. You have to engage closely with the game's visual language, the motion capture work, the voice performances, the facial animations, all of that, to get the absolute most out of what this game is telling you and conveying to you. You have to really zoom in and listen. And that's just like an absolute first for fucking JRPGs from my experience, man. The unbelievable quality of this package can't be overstated. Like, they left no stone unturned, from the pacing of the game, the combat, the characterization and the way that feeds into everyone's different combat styles. Like, this feels like such a deft execution for a first-time developer, let alone a development team of people who have never really worked in game development before. Like, a lot of the people on this team, you know, they're fresh from graduating. Like, the composer didn't release any music before this. The writer of the game was an actor at one point in the game, and she's never published any writing before. Like, everyone here is just sort of throwing themselves at this, and somehow the stars have just aligned to make this such a confident and well-executed package. I'm blown away. It's like, imagine if you assembled a dream team of developers, like programmers from like Insomniac. You got like Amy Hennig and Neil Druckmann on board. You got artists from Supergiant, you know, all the biggest talents in the gaming industry, Cory Barlog, you name it. You just got like the super team, and they're like, hey, go make a game for 5 years. What they'd come back with is probably going to be really good, but I would actually bet money on it being not as good as Clair Obscur. Like, that's the level of quality we're on here, which is crazy. This game just has that cosmic special sauce that will live on in the hearts of players for a long time. The only thing that held it back for me is purely just a situational thing. Like, JRPGs, they just have a bit of a tedium about them that I did feel quite a bit playing this game, especially in the middle portion. It starts really strong, ends really strong. The middle portion is you're kind of going from level to level, fighting bosses, learning about the characters. You know, there were definitely plenty of moments in that time where I was having a lovely experience, but the JRPG sort of combat loop, leveling up, the menu faffing, is something that I've grown to find pretty tiresome, you know, after having played, you know, quite a lot of JRPGs like Dragon Quest and Persona. And I think maybe if it broke out of that shell, that would be the layer it would have to break for me to really feel like it's a all-timer masterpiece, I suppose, to put it on that level, on a personal level. But I can still absolutely agree that this is a fantastic game. I had a fantastic time with it. I do love this game. And its asking price is cheaper than it has any fucking right to be. I got this game for like £30 at face value. It's absolutely nuts. Buy this game, support this game, play this game. This is absolutely the game that we need to be telling the industry that we want more of. It's pushing the medium forward, in my opinion, and in no area is that more apparent than in its incredibly moving and tender storytelling. So what tops that on my list at number 9? Well, that would be a very dinky little small game I played called Consume Me, which actually has quite a bit in common with Persona. It's kind of a time management game in a lot of ways. There's also a lot of WarioWare influence, I want to say, with the mini games and just the rapid fire pace of it. You play as a young girl going through adolescence, teenagehood. She's going to school, she's got a crush, she's got a test, she's watching her weight, she's figuring herself out. It's like a coming of age kind of game. And we've seen stuff like that in games before. Life is Strange comes to mind, I suppose. But yeah, this game feels like it's a diary entry. It's very much stylized to look like scribbles in someone's notepad. The whole thing is beautifully drawn with loads of personality. This thing is really funny. And it definitely feels like an older woman looking back at her younger self and saying, God, man, that was horrible, wasn't it? We made it. You're going to be okay. And it feels like it wants to be a bit of a encouraging hug for the player, but it happens to just be fantastically enjoyable to play at the same time. A real delight to actually play through. The mini games, the text messages, the way the game kind of reinvents itself with each phase of the lead character's life is wonderful. And it took me about 7-8 hours to play. It wasn't too, you know, daunting or time consuming. It respected my time. I would have liked maybe a few variants on things like the makeup mini game or the one where you're cleaning the windows and everything, just to switch it up and keep things fresh across that 8 hours. But these games, they're so fleeting in how long they last for. It never got to a point where it was like agonizing to get through. I mean, ultimately I was here for the storytelling and the presentation first and foremost, and that just never faltered. I would love to see more indie games like this that are very transparent and autobiographical. This was a serious gem from this year, and it won a really prestigious award. I wish I could remember what the name of the award was. It was the same award that Oberdin and Outer Wilds won in their respective years. So I'm glad to see it get some serious love in the gaming industry as like a special moment. Number 8 is a game I am shocked I even bought. I really was content with just leaving this one. I thought it looked kind of gimmicky, but I just saw it was on sale one day. I don't know, I just bought it on a whim, just randomly. It was like a compulsive buy. Baby Steps from Bennett Foddy, Gabe Cusillo, and what the hell's the third guy's name? These are the guys that brought us Ape Out a few years ago, and Bennett Foddy is particularly known for making shoddy traversal games like, you know, Getting Over It and Quap. So it comes as no surprise that he's involved with another game with a similar conceit. You play as Nathan, who's a layabout. He watches anime all day, and he is transported all of a sudden to this magical world with a giant mountain, and he is tasked with climbing it and making it to the top. He runs into some people on his journey, and he just wants to be left alone. He can't really handle people at all. He doesn't know how to speak, really. He doesn't know how to accept help. And yeah, you're kind of given pretty minimal context. You see a summit, you see a guy who can barely walk, you have to lug him along and climb the mountain. That is your goal. And your question immediately becomes, oh, I wonder what's at the top of this mountain. I wonder what the summit is going to give me. And whilst I can't say that what does wait for you there is disappointing, what I can say is you really learn this is not about the summit. This is about the journey. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey, bro. If you were to buy this game and play through this game, you are going to be playing many hours of awkward, clunky walking. That is what you're signing up for. That's what I knew I was signing up for. So the task of baby steps is, how do I make that interesting and engaging and exciting? And to me, it's actually an ingenious use of the video game medium. You will get impatient and carried away rushing and end up slipping, and you're pissed off and you have to recoup that progress. But on the way, on that journey, you will laugh your ass off. You will get very curious. You will have loads of itches that desperately need scratching. You will see obstacles and puzzles and clues for things that you could find elsewhere in the world. It's a world that I genuinely am desperate to comb every single square inch of. You have to laboriously lug every painful footstep through this world. And that just makes every small victory feel unbelievable. And it's an incredible thing for this character to go through, because he's clearly forgotten about the joy of pushing through to the other side of something horrible. I've actually been able to relate this game to my personal life this year quite a bit. As I left my job, I don't know, I just felt like a urge to just see new life. I was in a comfortable thing. The job market's very difficult. It wasn't a safe thing to do, but I just had to just be somewhere else. Yeah, that comfort that I had going on before at that old job that I left was nowhere to be found for a good few months this year. And I was like, man, should I have done that? Blah, blah, blah. It was tricky, you know. I'm in a more stable situation now, which is nice. But yeah, it was a difficult decision. But by the end of it, I feel like I learned a lot and I gained a lot and I got some experience that I was maybe missing or forgetting. And yeah, this game kind of bottles into a video game why it can be kind of important and more interesting and more valuable if you do take the extra steps to lug through something horrible. The reality you're hit with at the other side of that is one with a lot more clarity and confidence. Yeah, baby steps ended up being a really enlightening and beautiful experience for me. And it also just happened to be really, 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 really funny at the same time. Every cutscene was incredibly disturbing and incredibly funny. It's pretty awesome. I thought this game ruled. At number 7, I've got Donkey Kong Bonanza, one of the most forward-thinking 3D platformers ever made. The entire crux of a good 3D platformer is inventive levels, cool mechanics, cool movement controls, and I love how this game is like, let me give you that, but let me also give you a world that you can break to your own will. You can just mess apart all of this curated design as much as you want, and somehow there is still a thought-provoking internal puzzle to be had here as a 3D platformer. I don't know how that fucking managed to happen. It's just really impressive that even a game where you can break everything in sight, this game can't be broken to a point where it all falls apart. There is still like a robust challenge at the center that is engaging. Much like another recent previous mainline Nintendo game, Tears of the Kingdom, there are very many secrets and solutions in Donkey Kong Bonanza that can be solved the wrong way, or you can just break your way through to the solution you're not supposed to be at yet if you're willing to push the game there. And the game's fully happy to let you do that. It doesn't punish you for that at all. It embraces the expressive freedom and playground of a good platformer whilst giving you an entirely new subversive approach to a platform. Smashing in this game feels unfucking real. It never gets old for the entire 15 hours this game goes on. It's a pretty long game for a Nintendo platformer. All of this contributes towards a really exciting, satisfying gameplay rhythm, but that rhythm gets absolutely shattered when you enter the second half of this game, and this thing really goes insane. This thing really pops off the fucking handle with its personality and surrealness, and it gets kind of transcendent. Probably one of the most interesting and exciting Nintendo games in a long, long time. I don't think it's quite on the level of the recent Zeldas or anything like that, but it is absolutely riskier and more zany, whether it be Mario Galaxy or Mario Sunshine, those formative games that plenty of kids would have grown up with and just felt like absolutely enamored with. I could see Bonanza being like an all-time favorite for a lot of kids and adults too. It's just one of those undeniable bangers. It's absolutely a reason to buy a Switch 2. Coming in at number 6 though, number 6 and number 5 were the most difficult ones. I have ended up placing Hades 2 at number 6 on my list. I thought this was going to be like a top 3. I think there was just like a magic to the ones that beat it out that just became clearer to me as the year continued. And Hades 2 It's a much more iterative game than you might think, given Supergiant's track record of making games with narratives that are so intrinsically intertwined with what the game is having you do. Games like Pyre and Transistor come to mind, and even the first Hades, and I think that kind of applies here, but I do feel like Hades 2 exists as a way for Supergiant to really flex their action muscles, because this game is an unbelievably perfect action game. It's actually ridiculous how this game doesn't fall apart at any point. It doesn't ever feel too overstuffed. It's always just kind of on the brink of maybe getting too overblown or bloated, but I don't think it ever really gets there. I don't think it ever really gets like suffocating or, you know, tedious. Like all the different build options, the progression, it just all kind of clicks into place and nothing feels too massively underbalanced or out of balance. Every kind of boon path can result in a fun enough or strong enough build, and just seeing all of that kind of connect, it feels miraculous. It's like Hades 1 unlocked in them some desire to really flex their action muscles, and I feel like Hades 2 was like, you know what, we can push it even further and make one of the most mechanically satisfying, most wonderfully readable and beautiful action experiences possible. Narratively and thematically, it's not as much of an advancement as you might think. I think it did kind of assert itself to be that way at first, given that it was dealing with multiple gods struggling under the pressure of being rulers and gods, and their power kind of overtaking what's just and what's good, with that being channeled through the means of a dysfunctional family. This game is very personal and expressive in that way, and I think Melanoe is a wonderful protagonist, but I can't say it's necessarily scratching an itch that the first Hades didn't in that regard. I think the first Hades provided you that in a way that was smaller, that was more intimate, and that's what made it a bit more powerful to me. You know, Hades was primarily focused on the relationship between Zagreus and Hades, whereas in Hades 2, the relationship splinters so massively and it tries to give them all equal time. That's really where I feel like the scale and size of Hades 2 does result in maybe some loss, I guess. I don't think these are necessarily problems with the game, because again, the game is prioritizing being an action game first. There is maybe lost potential for something a bit more striking there. The game does kind of fumble its ending. I heard that it had a pretty rough ending, but I didn't want to believe it. I was like, I bet you guys are just overreacting, bro. Nah, I feel it. I feel it. However, the music, the boss fights, the progression, the character interactions, the surprises, there's loads of that here, and the replay value is nuts. The content level is incredible here. It's one of the best action experiences you can get your hands on. It's the kind of game that doesn't feel like it was made by people. It feels like it was just here and we found it. It is proof that Supergiant can operate comfortably on a big scale. It feels like the kind of game that once you've made this, you have evolved and leveled up as a studio, and I am kind of quaking in my boots to see what comes next for them. Entering the top 5 though, my 5th favorite game of the year is Hollow Knight Silk Song. This game delivers a rare level of childlike jittery imagination. You know, like Hades 2, it's less messy. I would call Silk Song kind of messy in its design decisions sometimes, you know, the runbacks, the cheapness of some of these bosses, especially in the late game, the gauntlets. This game's very unconcerned with the level of punishment it's dishing out for your shortcomings in this game. It's a tough game. It's a really brutal game. It's a game that is saying you cannot just level up and brute force through. You have to meet this game on its terms, and it's very strict on you doing that, and this game is quick. It is very impressive that every single move you're seeing on screen is as like discernible as it is. Like, this is a really speedy and reactive game. I can't think of very many games where your actions and your autonomy over your character's moves feel so like tactile. Like every little pixel of movement and each attack, it feels so directly, instantaneously responsive. It's like terrifying. It's like you have so much control at every given moment. Whenever you see an enemy in that window of opportunity to attack them, you can't let it slip, and you know you can get them if you think quick enough, and this game can be very daunting. Hollow Knight Silk Song impresses me massively in how it mechanically feels to play. It never once stopped being jaw-dropping to just dash around, platform, collect things on the way, use your little needles to zip around. It's just unbelievable the moveset at your disposal in this game and how flexible it is with the different crests and upgrades you can get. It just keeps on giving. It's just a really, really expressive control scheme. But yeah, beyond all of that and how impressive all of that is, Silk Song flourishes in just, the childlike adventure it gives you. It's all just so brimming with this earnestness and care, and you want to hear what every little bug has to say. There's so much personality in every corner of this thing. Behind every wall there is something. There is a little civilization, a little village. Like the life of Hollow Knight and its universe feels like it is ever expanding, and it feels impossibly eternal. And I just love being in this world, and the music that's scoring it, the sound design of the little vocal shrieks and stuff that accentuate your moves, and the characters in this game. It feels so lovingly made. This is a seriously beautiful adventure. You know, it's grueling and demanding, but it's beautiful before it's anything else, I think. Looking back on my time with the games this year, I really felt like whisked away and just in awe of Hollow Knight in a way that's really rare. So yeah, I'm deciding to chuck this one in the top 5. I think it would be disingenuous otherwise. I love this shit. Number 4 is a game that I was really confident was gonna get shafted out with Donkey Kong and Silent Hill, just all the great games we've had this year, the indies and the AAA games alike. I was really sure that I thought that Split Fiction would probably land somewhere in like the maybe 8 or 9 spot. Maybe it would just be outside of the top 10 even, but it's held really strong. And actually, looking back, it is one of the best experiences I've had this year. Shout out to my friend Michael, who embarked on this journey with me. It being a co-op experience, you know, you're making memories with friends as well. That's gonna give it like a sentimental edge, I suppose. But just looking at the game and the set pieces and the creativity and the color and the imagination and the gameplay mechanics on display, Split Fiction is so explosively bursting with life and beauty everywhere you look in this game. It's a stunner. The environments, I don't think this game's gotten enough love for its environmental vistas. The backdrops you are seeing are so unbelievably detailed and painstakingly made. I can't believe they're even real, particularly in the sci-fi, because it's like bouncing between sci-fi and fantasy as you play. The sci-fi backdrops are stupid. The game may have a fairly predictable and see-through narrative, but that doesn't stop the game from having fun with that narrative. It is full of personality, full of humor. The capture thing, fucking crazy. Ultimately, through its fairly bare-bones story, it does communicate pretty powerfully a message about humanity and storytelling, and this is about as anti-AI as it fucking gets, really. The villains of this game are very clearly allegorical for machines and AI taking over human creativity, human passion, and it gets petty. These two characters, their petty quabbles about sci-fi and fantasy and how entrenched it is in their own experiences. I think it's a lovely way to communicate how true like pain and using art as a means to expel that pain is something that will always be more meaningful and valuable than like anything a machine could come up with, no matter how advanced any of that could possibly be. And this game being like a living physical example of that as well, in its remarkable creativity on display. Every 5 seconds, every 3 fucking minutes, you are being presented with an idea that is good enough to warrant its entire own game, only for it to get discarded in favor of 3 even fucking better ideas. And this game just relentlessly cycles through just unbelievable situations, scenarios, the side missions, the ones where you turn into like a pig and shit. This game is just like, there's no boundary at all with Hazelight. Everything is possible in a Hazelight game. And I feel like that was embraced in It Takes Two, but it was capitalized on as far as its potential to the absolute maximum in Split Fiction. This game brought that to a scale and a level of imagination that I didn't even think was possible, and it definitely culminates into an extremely fulfilling and thrilling finale. One of my favorite endings to a game maybe of all time. The ending of Split Fiction is seriously insane. I cannot believe it. There's something just so unapologetic and contagious about this game's spirit, and the more I've lived with it, the more I've sat with my time with it, the more I look back on it with fondness. This is pretty comfortably probably the best like couch co-op experience ever. Yeah, dude, I'm amazed. Play Split Fiction. Don't discount Split Fiction. I feel like it got kind of shuffled out of the zeitgeist in the wake of Clair Obscur and many other great games. Number 3, my third favorite game of the year, I think is one of the best RPGs ever made. That is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Yet to roll credits on this game. So I suppose when I roll credits, you know, this could change. You know, anything in this list could change. But as of right now, I've spent like 70 hours in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which I think is enough time for me to place it on the list. I've got the most hours on this game than any other game on this list. So Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, every time I play it, it gets better. Every single hour I spend in this world, I like it more. It's funny, like a similar appeal lives here in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 to that I just described in Split Fiction. How Split Fiction keeps kind of throwing surprises at you and ideas at you that outdo the last idea. That's what I get from this game and its incredible writing and its quest design. You will never in a million years predict the quests that happen in this game. The ways characters can kind of misinterpret things you say and decisions you make, and the way these conversations can spiral. It's just just written in this very rare way that's weirdly authentic, but also just not afraid to get a bit strange with it. The personalities you come across in this game are just so oddball. There's just so many strange people in this world, and it's beautiful. And you can tell all of it is so lovingly being pulled from real history, from real stories. It's a truly tremendous world, but I gotta give this game some props for being just an incredibly fun game to play. This game is arduous, this game is laborious. You have a lot of mini games and tasks like alchemy and blacksmithing, things that you have to really learn and trudge through in order to get better at them. Even things like archery. This is not the kind of game where you can just like level up your damage and all of a sudden you're stronger, like, you know, in any other RPG. There's no skill trees in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. It's literally do it more and you'll get better. You feel like you're physically growing and learning and evolving, not just your character, but you yourself as you engage with this world. I feel like you could gain quite a lot of amazing life advice from Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. The game design really does encourage you to sort of tune into every aspect of this game's world, and when you do, it is so beautifully immersive and intoxicating. There's also an element of it that feels adjacent to like an immersive sim, where quests can be completed in a litany of different ways if you're willing to look for them, whether it be through stealth and lockpicking and knowing where people are at a certain point. You know their schedules. Every character has their own schedule. This game's systems are so detailed and intricate. This game will remember everything. The clothes that you wore when you saw somebody, how loud your clothes are when you are being stealthy, you don't want to wake anybody up, or even how bad you smell. You know, that shit really matters in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and it's a really incredible just character building experience, and it's placed into a story that's every bit as grand and epic as it is small and personal. There are factions and disagreements and politics in this world that you're hearing about as you speak to the people and you hear people's opinions. Like, this game is incredibly vivid, and just trawling through it is such a delight, and I truly am just really grateful for the amount of effort and time spent in just making every little stone, every rock, every corner of this map as lived in as it is. It's like the ultimate escape. This game has been the ultimate escape for me this year, and I'm so delighted to think that I've probably not even seen half of what this fucking game has to offer as far as its side content, and I love it. I want to comb through it all. It's kind of a hard game to sort of penetrate through. It can be pretty obtuse, you know, there's a lot of different mechanics happening, but once you get on the other side of all of that and you set off on your horse, you soak in the environments, you hear the little chatter happening from the people, and you go there and you engage, and you're actually met with like friends and, you know, a quest line that's actually rewarding, and you can gain skills from it and apply it elsewhere in the game. You don't want to leave this world, man. This world is so beautifully made, from the clothes people wear to the buildings and the humor that people have. Like, this thing is seriously well researched. It's delightful. It's one of the most charming and delightful games out there. It's seriously amazing, and I recommend it to anybody who calls themselves a fan of RPGs. Now we're in the top two. These two flickered all over the place throughout the year, but as I have it right now, my number 2 is Despelote. So as I'm sure you know, I'm kind of what you might call a Brit. I'm surrounded by football every day. You know, I'm very familiar with the immense passion and love people have for sport in general, but, you know, British people in football, man, it's a different level, I'm telling you, man. It's just crazy. And I used to love football when I was younger as well. You know, there's definitely times where I would, similarly to the lead character in Despelote, just stare at the screen, completely blanked out of everything else around me, and just eager with anticipation to see goals happen, to see my favorite player do the thing I want them to do so I can tell everyone that they're the best player in the world. And yeah, this game, I think, as much as it is about football, as much as it is like a kind of a documentary piece about a moment in Ecuador's history, I think simultaneously this game is every bit as much those moments as a kid where you escape, you completely absorb yourself in something, to a point where priorities and safety becomes, like, you know, the shit that you should be learning as a kid. Sometimes it doesn't really get fully ingrained in your brain until way too late, because you are just completely engrossed. And this game uses this moment in Ecuador's history in a way that's endearing and respectful of the significance of it, but also to spotlight just how meaningful to this developer this moment was on a more personal level. This game is extremely autobiographical. You have the lead developer narrating throughout the entire game, highlighting the importance of these moments and progressions that this team in Ecuador is making towards the World Cup. And even later on in the game, you get a very candid, straight-to-player meta moment. It's very much begging the question of, like, is there a space for documentary games that hasn't really been tapped into yet? I'd love to see more games tackle this. I feel like it's kind of awesome. You know, Consume Me similarly has an autobiographical element to it. And I know those guys who make there's like a Tetris thing going through the history of Tetris and its significance, I would love to see more games, explore this space. But Despelote feels like the most blunt, soul-bearing, and personal interrogation of what this can accomplish, because not only does Despelote look at the beauty and amazing wonder and imagination of what being engrossed in your favorite thing ever as a kid, can inspire, but it also highlights the disconnect it can bring to the people around you, to making friends, to growing up, to your family worried about you, concerned about you, talking about you in the other room. There's a moment in this game involving like a party where no one seems to want anything to do with you. This game recreates a feeling that is hard to put into words, but I suppose it's the feeling of when you are a kid and you're seeing adults talk and you don't really fully know what they're saying. You understand the words they're using, but you don't know what they're really talking about. This feeling that's very exclusive to being a kid who is curious. Despelote brought me back to that space. This game's ending really hit that out of the park for me as well. Community, culture, how important and entrenched these things are to any given person as well. That's also a huge part of this game. This game just touches on a lot of things that very rarely are seen in games, and it just did so mechanically, musically, visually. Every element of the game did. It all felt like it was channeled through an extremely specific personal vision. I think it got there in a way that only a game ever could. I think the game's got plenty to say about nostalgia too, how crippling nostalgia can really be. It's a seriously moving game, and it's only 2 hours long. It's a very contained, short burst of an experience, and it feels great to play too, just as a video game. The sort of first-person kicking mechanic it's really quite fun to try and wrangle it to your will. And looking around and exploring the park and seeing what local residents and kids are up to, playing around with the other kids who are sort of, a little bit petty and competitive, with football. It feels very authentically lifted from memory. And yeah, it's pretty wonderful and heartwarming to get a game to where it really feels like you're reaching into somebody's psyche and learning about a human being and a human life. And as a result, it's very, not to generalize, but it's very indicative of what that experience was like. Being a kid in Ecuador at this time was a feeling that you can't really explain unless you were there, and this game is doing its damnedest to try and make you feel that, but it's also, I think, a real exhale, at the same time, for the people making this game, for the person, I forget his name, such a dickhead. One of the best things I've played in a long time. I think this is seriously stunning shit, and I've thought about it relentlessly ever since I finished it. I cried my eyes out when I rolled the credits of this thing, and I played it through again 3 times over after that. It's pretty amazing. It's kind of a masterpiece in my opinion. However, that brings us to my favorite game of the year, which I thought was going to be my favorite game of the year pretty quickly in my playthrough of it. It's Blueprints. In order for me to talk about why I think Blueprints is one of the most forward-thinking and fascinating and masterful games I've ever played, I need to talk about another game which I also think is one of the most forward-thinking and masterful games I've ever played, and that is Gone Home. I very briefly mentioned in my Game Awards video that Blueprints and Gone Home have quite a lot in common. It's more than you think. Gone Home is a narrative, first-person walking game about somebody trying to work out where their family's gone. They come home from a holiday and the house is empty, and you go around the house looking for clues, reading notes, just trying to work out where they've gone. The emotional gut punch that game can have is very dependent on how much the player is willing to explore every nook and cranny of that house. However, it being a house at nighttime where you're by yourself, reading through notes, looking through people's personal belongings, it gets a bit scary. It's not a horror game at all, but you feel like something is going to find you at some point because you're reading things that you shouldn't be reading. You feel like you're invading on people's spaces and stuff like that. And it's a dark fucking house. It just feels scary. And the lighting and the music, it kind of encourages the idea that maybe Gone Home is secretly a horror game, but it's not a horror game. There's no monsters, there's no combat, which means that the idea of something actually following you in Gone Home is scary because you've got no weapons or anything. You've got no method of defending yourself. So it creates a space where your brain can play tricks on you. Blueprints takes this exact appeal to a different fucking level. And what it ends up resulting is an extremely novel way to make the player get completely entrenched and fascinated in a constantly unfurling mystery, something that I never thought was even possible. A roguelike puzzle game. You hear roguelike puzzle game and it's like, well, that's impossible. How do you even pull that shit off? You can't have randomly just generated puzzles that are actually interesting to solve, without just immediately exploiting the game's mechanics or something, and it just becomes like a no-brainer. Somehow, Blueprints finds a way to make this work. In Blueprints, you play as Simon P. Jones, and you have been gifted, your fucking uncle's mansion on the basis that you can find like the secret room in the mansion. You go through each room and there's puzzles. Sometimes there's just like a puzzle to solve, like in the parlor room or the billiards room we have like a little maths puzzle. Sometimes the puzzles, most of the time, are like these overarching kind of puzzles. You'll have tools that you can find, like a magnifying glass or a shovel where you can dig things and they can reveal more secrets, but there's no guarantee you're going to find those things on any given run. Again, it's a roguelike, so it's kind of a matter of going back day by day, new runs, revealing new secrets. You feel like you're being watched, like you're being followed, but you also feel like you're going insane because you're confused as to what you're looking at is a puzzle or not. You're convinced there's something there. And if you know anything about me and my taste, if you look at my favorite games of all time video that I put out a year or so ago, I can't exactly remember how long ago that was now, there's plenty of games where the central appeal is there are secrets hidden in plain sight. Games like Outer Wilds or Fez or Tunic, The Witness as well, games where there is just so much there for the player to miss. It's so possible for any given playthrough to completely gloss over some of the most fascinating secrets that the game has to offer. Animal Well was my game of the year last year, and that's the entire crux of that game's appeal. So Blueprints takes that appeal and marries it with the storytelling approach of something like Gone Home, where you're revealing deep family secrets that are also related to a wider political regime happening in this world. It's actually crazy how vast and rich the sort of wider lore is in Blueprints. And eventually that wider lore becomes crucial to solving some of the deepest secrets in Blueprints. And it's kind of shocking how deep the layers go. Like when you think of a roguelike puzzle game and it's like, okay, you're going to get like different rooms every single day. And it's like, oh, surely at some point you're going to be seeing the same rooms over and over again. Blueprints has an incredibly smart way of bypassing this issue. You know, it will show you the same rooms a million times over, but you don't actually know what's in that room in the moment. You think you do, but you'll find many hours later that there was so much in that room that was extremely helpful for way later in the game, but you had no idea, and this game will constantly have you retracing your steps, and it just always managed to be like 5 steps ahead of me. It was just an incredible time really getting completely lost and immersed in this wider mystery. The musical scoring of it all makes it feel so tragic and dramatic and really zooms in on the more harrowing and personal elements of this game's story, which is one of the best stories I've experienced in the game. I absolutely love this game's narrative. Specifically, it really reminded me of playing through The Witness for the first time, because The Witness was a game that lived in my head separate from the game. It's the kind of game where you could look around you, see something, and it could inspire a solution in that moment, and you're like, shit, get me home now, I figured it out. And that's something that actually happened to me during my playthrough of Blueprints. I was in a queue once for like a coffee, and there was like a gym place to the right of this coffee spot, and it was like, oh yeah, we will test your gaits, like GAITS was written there. That was like on the ad for the gym, and I saw that and I was like, oh, that was like the coolest moment of my entire year. When those dots connected, I was like, get me home, get me home, get me, I know what to do, I know what to do, I know. It's pretty fucking niche. Like, this is like a tough thing to market, you know? It's a frustrating game too. It being a roguelike, it can be kind of tough to like wrangle the RNG in your favor, and that's something you can kind of slowly get better at as you get more resources throughout the game. The game is randomly generated, so you might desperately want to go back to the fucking security room, but the RNG just never rolls it for you, because every time you open a door, you're given like a short list of 3 rooms to choose from. And yeah, this game can be frustrating. It can be pretty tough to fight against, especially in the late game when your solutions are very dependent on the RNG being in your favor. But one thing I think is just an undeniable truth about Blueprints is that this is an incredibly unique, original, eye-opening approach to puzzle game design that I am so confident will make a whole wave of Blueprints likes going forward. Blueprints is very much its own beast. The feel of this game, the atmosphere, the music, the look of this game. I love the art style. It's haunting. It's an eerie game. It's one that has the potential to really drive you crazy and light a fire in your soul. It's responsible for some of my favorite eureka moments I've ever had in a puzzle game, and I'm so pissed that my PS Plus Extra subscription has run out because I can't play this game anymore. Never managed to get all 8 classrooms. That's my next thing. Incredible game, man. So there you go, my top 20 games of the year. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more gaming content from yours truly. Give it a like and drop a silly comment for the algorithm. Let me know what your favorite game of the year was, but most importantly, you just have a wonderful day. Love you guys. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one. Bye bye.